And we're firstly off to Afghanistan, where, mashallah, the sport of parkour is bringing together youth respectfully and peacefully, as Diane Desobi has this for us.
A sense of freedom in a city of blast walls and checkpoints. This is parkour, or free running, where the aim is to skip over any obstacles as efficiently as possible. It was born in France in the 90s, and these young Afghans are hooked.
When we do parkour, it raises our confidence, it brings us excitement, and we really enjoy it. So whenever we practice, we try to do more difficult moves.
The discipline is still unheard of in most of Afghanistan. Zahidi and his friends discovered parkour on the internet in the late 2000s and taught themselves with online tutorials. They started training together 5 years ago here in Kabul and now practice almost every day. But for them, in a country scarred by 35 years of war, it's not just about physical activity.
When we practice this sport, we try to push our country forward and develop the sport of parkour. And this way our country becomes more developed.
The next step is to set up a club to train new recruits. Thanks to social media, the group has built up a small fan base in the Afghan capital, and some have been asking to join training sessions. Among them, several young women.
If we want to train girls, it's better to have an indoor club to train them. Since our society is conservative, if girls train outside, people will think that they have loose morals or bad character.
18-year-old Gulbahar is one of those girls. She contacted the group online before meeting them face-to-face for her very first parkour lesson.
There aren't many opportunities for girls to do parkour in Afghanistan. That's why I've shown my interest by joining this group. I want to be the first woman doing parkour here.
She may be the first of many. Some of her friends have also decided to join the sessions. In the club and on the dusty streets of Kabul, these parkour lovers will continue to share their passion and bring about change one jump at a time.
How terrific to see a positive piece, of course, from Afghanistan. They're not too sure if I agree with the concept that somehow women could be disrespectful if they're training outside. Ask the Olympians, the Muslim Olympians even. I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but that's a debate for another day. Our next guest this evening claims on Facebook, and I quote, "It's simply impossible to condense any individual's life into a biography on a single page." Well, I'm going to try my best now. He is an athlete, an author, and the managing director at Parkour Generations. Just like Bridget, he's another expert guest tonight that we're honoured to host. Dan Edwards, welcome to Living the Life, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Parkour, tell us about it. I mean, I've heard of it and we've seen a bit about it in the VT, but tell us, what is the concept of parkour?
So parkour is a training discipline really where you're looking to develop your movement and to integrate your body and mind through challenging yourself by adapting to terrain and the space you encounter. So it's really a natural movement and functional movement discipline that's looking to sort of get you to reach your potential, both physically and mentally, because it requires a real sort of integration of the two. So it's a very effective way to get fit and strong, but that's not the primary goal. That's kind of a byproduct. The primary goal is to find out what you can do as a human being with your body and your mind, and what you can achieve, and to find your potential.
Fantastic. Now, you say obviously it's adapting to the environment that you're in. How simple is it to participate in? What is safe and what's not safe? What's the top tips? If this isn't, if there's a newbie like me watching, or anyone at home who hasn't seen it before, they're fascinated, think, can we get going? Let's go. What are the things we need to be looking out for? Certainly, perhaps back here in the UK, what kind of spaces would you advise to go about using?
Well, yeah, parkour, it is adaptive. So in a way, it can, as the video shows, right, you can train anywhere, you can adapt, and that's the concept of it. So, which is great. Obviously, we recommend you get guidance if you can early on. There are lots of qualified coaches now, and the UK is kind of really leading the world in that way. We have a lot of qualified coaches around the world, so there's good access to get good guidance. But not everywhere has that sort of access, so you don't necessarily need it. You can, as those guys there are doing, they're sort of researching online, finding out some information, and then trying to apply it and finding their own way, which is really great, right? And that's a hugely sort of autonomous way, an independent way, an autodidactic way, in a way, to learn. So that's great. But if you can get guidance, it's gonna just shortcut you there. It's gonna save you time and making mistakes. So it's the best way to do it is to look for a qualified coach, a class, or some more experienced practitioners who train near you, and find them and ask them.
You, of course, are a parkour athlete yourself, but you're also the MD of Parkour Generations. Tell us more about the work Parkour Generations are doing.
Yeah, Parkour Generations does lots of different elements around the world. So our main thrust, I suppose, is education and training. So what we're really trying to do is protect and maintain and pass on the spirit and the methods of the discipline to anyone that wants to learn. So to make it accessible, really, that's how we began. We also work a lot, obviously, in performance, in movies and TV, and sort of bringing parkour to that space too. We've kind of branched out, so now we design facilities for parkour training, both indoor and outdoor. We consult with the theatres and arts groups, so we bring it into that sort of sphere. We produce materials and books and sort of resources like that. And we also work with sort of military and operational groups as well in helping them become better movers. So it's kind of, parkour has found its way into lots of different industries, and has shown, I suppose, that it's as adaptive as a concept as the movement is, in space. So it's been really interesting, yeah.
That's quite an interesting angle. You're saying, using it for professional purposes as well, because I think often in the sport we always assume it's just for kind of social or for the very few that get to the top of the professional game in whatever sport they're in. But to give us some context, I mean, for example, this studio you can probably see on the pan shot at the moment of what's going on here. This is quite a smaller space, but this particular studio, we're not normally here, but could you literally use a space like this and an object in the room to be jumping over, or is it literally that easy?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that's easy.
Sorry, no, I put my money where my mouth is. That's what I should do.
But it's accessible, yeah. And that you can train anywhere really. It's about because parkour is body weight training. Effectively, you don't need any weights or equipment. You don't even really necessarily need a pair of shoes. You can train bare feet. So you're just your body. So as long as you're there, you can train. I mean, the more terrain, the more diversity, the more variety of terrain you have, the better in a way, because the more you're going to have to adapt and find new ways to move, and that adaptation is what builds your strength and your agility and your functionality, right? So the more variety of terrain you have, the better. But if you've only got this, then you work with this. I mean, that's the concept of parkour.
Just that dynamic.
Yeah.
Wow. And obviously we see in sport often the balance is that it's more men than women participating in this particular sport. From your experience, has this been a more of an equal sex sport, or?
Parkour began as male-dominated, absolutely. It was started by a group of young guys in France, in Paris, and it was just because of that, it was other guys that got involved, because the role models of it were guys. But about 10 years ago, we really made a push to involve more women in the UK, and that exploded. And so now it's still predominantly male. I'd say it's probably about 30-35% of the practitioners in the London classes, for example, are women, which is a really huge improvement. 10 years ago, there were like 5 women in the world that did it. Now there are, women's events, there are women's classes, and all over the world, not just in London. So there's really great female scenes all over the world. So although it's probably 75-25, 70-30 male-female, but that female scene is really, really growing, and it's something we're really encouraging and happy to see it grow.
That's terrific. Well, I'm sure we're going to have more questions for you, so do stay with us, Dan. Thank you so much.